Welcome to Scott's Boring Podcast. Right now we're doing a series where I'm reading through the novel Rocked Up that I wrote with my wife, Karina Halley. So thanks for joining me. Maybe you just have been listening to Chapter 3, and this is automatically playing. If so, hang in there, or just skip ahead and continue with the story. Maybe you're just joining me now and you're not clear on what's happening. Well, you just jumped in on an audiobook. Yeah. I'm reading an audiobook. A book I wrote. And welcome. It's called Rocked Up. I hope you like it. Right now we're in between Chapter 3 and Chapter 5. And we'll do a little recap of what happened and what you're about to listen to. All right? All right. Before we get to that, sometimes I think what I'm doing here, talking to you, is nuts. Not only is it nuts, it's kind of, like sometimes I think we're all doing everything wrong, like social media, podcasting, YouTube, all that shit. Sometimes I think we're a bunch of fools doing it completely wrong, and either we'll figure it out when we're much older, or the next generation will be like, my God, they had no idea what they were doing. Could you believe it? Kind of like how soldiers used to smoke. Everyone used to smoke back in the day. They didn't know. Now we know. I don't know, there's something about this that is just fucking nuts. And dangerous. I overheard a conversation of somebody saying oh, my brother-in-law has a podcast. Oh, everyone's like, oh God, another douche with a podcast. I was like, oh fuck, I have one. So I don't know, is it kind of lame? I don't know. So I think, and also, but it's just permanent. And will I run for office one day? No, I probably won't. I won't. But if I did, well, I have a week's worth of me just talking off the cuff. I'm sure I've said some stupid shit. And what you say and do seems to matter so much now. It always did. And it does matter. I'm not being dismissive of that. You know what I'm talking about. I'm not being dismissive of that. But I'm saying that maybe what matters is going to matter more as time passes, and what matters will change. Maybe I've said things profoundly offensive and stupid, which are fine now. Like the Johnny Carson show, that was kind of racist. I don't know. Was that wrong? Everybody loves. I shouldn't knock Johnny Carson. He was no. Hang. I should almost edit that out because I misspoke there. He seemed to be, and by today's standards, he said things and behaved, in my opinion, that didn't sit well with me. But you look at that time, and I guess it was just the way it was, and everybody was okay. Moving away from that, my point is that sometimes I think this is nuts. But what I'm doing, the reason I'm doing this is I love the idea of somebody in the other side of the planet with a completely different life, and somehow stumbles upon this, and I could be talking to who knows who, but for some reason is like-minded. I find that interesting. And traveling as so much as we do lately, my wife and I, we realize that, it's worth connecting to people on the other side of the globe. There's something about being in different environments that affect people differently, and you learn something from them. Yeah, last time I talked about a restaurant, and restaurant culture is so different in different countries. What's interesting when you go away for a long time is coming home and going back to the North American restaurant culture. I don't know, especially in France. Going from France back home, it feels like the wait staff loves you. I'm like, I order like an appetizer and a drink, and then they take the order and they leave. I'm like, are you in love with me? Like, it's just like over the top because you're not used to it. And what it is tipping culture. That's unique to North America. And that's where it comes from. But like when you're not used to it and you come back, you're like, oh my dear Lord. Turn it down a notch. Another thing is the bread, not the bread on the table. That happens most places, or something like bread. But something I find unique to home in North America is the butter. And that's so North American when you think about it. The butter on the table with the bread. Why? And stick with me here. Don't drift off. I know this sounds really boring, but I just find it so funny. The butter is unique to here because like it's such a fat American and Canadian thing to do. Be like, what, you're full? You think you've had enough? No, here's a loaf of bread. Here's some lube so you can get it down. You can do it. Lube up. Get it down. That's what the butter is. No wonder we're all overweight. But anyway, I don't know. I just think it's kind of crazy doing this podcast thing. But I'm enjoying it. And I think it's good to keep it up, even when I question it. Just, fuck it. Just keep on doing it. Keep on going. It might be fun for me to look back on. And my ancestors. It'd be like, oh, my great-great Uncle Scott. It's fucking weird. Anyway, so what we're doing right now is we're reading through Rocked Up, all the male perspectives, and that's everything that I wrote. And we're going to skip Karina's chapters for now, and we're just going to read through it from the male perspective, which is kind of fun, right? This is very bootleg. All right? So what happened so far, we went through 2 chapters. The first one, we met the 2 heroes, the male and female. We met the protagonist, which is Mr. Ramsey, the owner and president of Ramsey Records, and also the father of Lael Ramsey. And we met everybody. And also Brad Snyder, the male hero, the musician, the young musician. And then in the next chapter, we discovered that the band that Brad is in is missing a bass player. Lael is a bass player. She's a younger, more impressionable musician, the daughter of the boss. She wants the gig. And the boss says, all right, my daughter will get the gig for a little while, and orders, Brad in the band to let her be the bass player for a tour. And it's kind of weird, right? You should be earning that position. So she said, fuck it. I'll tell you what, guys. I'll tell you what, Brad, let me audition. Let me go to an audition. That's all I ask. And that's how the chapter ends. So Brad said, okay, sure. You can audition for the position. So Brad knows that Lael is coming for the audition. He knows that Lael is the daughter of the evil Ronald Ramsey of Ramsey Records. But the rest of the band doesn't know. So this next chapter you're about to listen to is the auditions. It's one of my favorite ones, I think. I look at this very cinematically. It's supposed to be comedic. We're going to meet a few bass players who come and audition for the band. And then at the end, Lael auditions. Will Lael get the gig? Poof. Will the female hero stay in the story? Probably, yeah. It doesn't matter. It's fun. All right? So listen to it. All right? So this is chapter 5 in Brad's perspective of the novel Rocked Up, and I hope you enjoy it.
You want me to count 3 or something like a movie?
Okay, It's time to talk about bass players. I'm talking to our bandmates in our studio. We all have our usual spots. Calvi and I are next to our amps, and Switch behind his sparse drums. Of course, there's an empty chair where Nick used to be. It took me so long to fire Nick, because I was avoiding the painful process of finding his replacement. We're auditioning 4 bass players today. I have no doubt they'll all have their own individual sound, and play the songs with ease. But there's way more to consider than the sound that comes out of their amps. This is going to be someone we have to live with in a bus for months on end. Things to consider could be, are they easy to be around? Do they have stage presence? Do they show up on time? Do they represent and then well? Are they professional? Are they into drugs? Most importantly, we need a guy we have good chemistry with. Or, perhaps, a girl. I spoke to my manager, Arnie, and had him arrange for Lael to be added to the audition roster today. I could see him through the soundproof window sitting in the control room behind a mixing console, talking to someone just out of my sight. His long gray hair has barely thinned over the years, and his beard is always perfectly groomed to the point I often chuckle at the thought of a biker-looking dude trying to choose what leave-in conditioner he's going to get. I'm waiting for Switch or Calvi to respond to my question about the bassist. But as usual, I'm getting nothing. The room is silent save the hum of an amplifier and Calvi quietly tuning his gold-top guitar. Switch was closer to Nick than Calvi was, but he seems to be getting used to the idea that Nick is gone. I think he totally understood why I had to let Nick go. He started to believe in the myth of rock and roll and all the standard cliches, such as sex with groupies, depravity, violence, trashing hotel rooms, arrogance during interviews, drunk on stage, throwing televisions out of hotel windows, heroin, the chicken incident. Mr. Robson briefed me on the heroin thing at the start of my career, and I believed what he said was true. He said, "Kid, if you do it, you'll never be the same for the rest of your life." Nick definitely was not the same after he got into heroin, and eventually, I had to say goodbye to my old friend. "How do you guys want to approach this?" I ask a little more directly this time. They both shrug, and after some more silence, Switch speaks up. "Let's just jam with each of them, shoot the shit, see what happens." With his head tilted back and eyes in a squint, I can tell he's going to be tough on them. Calvi takes a break from tuning his guitar and adds to the conversation. "We don't have to choose any of them if we don't want. If we settle, we're right back in the same situation next year." I make eye contact with old Arnie through the window. I can tell our first victim is somewhere in the control room just out of my eye line because Arnie's body language has changed. Like my bandmates, he's been with me since the beginning, and I know him well. Arnie stands and walks out of sight. I take a deep breath and wait for the door to open. "That's how we did it in the old days," Arnie says, finishing his conversation with a rather tall, dark-haired, pale, skinny-looking character. "Boys," Arnie says, "this here is John Bettis. He stopped by to jam." Arnie has a guitar tech set John up as he sits down in Nick's old chair, next to Nick's old amp SVT amplifier. Even sitting down, John seems to tower over the three of us. His long face makes him look perpetually unimpressed. Switch, Calvi, and John make idle chit-chat, and I, too, go through the motions of greeting this gangly monster. I can tell the chemistry isn't right, even before we play a note. We do a song called Rust in My Bones, and although he plays the bass with precision, he has the energy of a mortician, and I'm happy to say goodbye. "Thanks for coming, John. We'll be in touch," Arnie says with a smile, keeping things light. Next up, none other than Jazz McKinnon. I'm actually starstruck when he floats into the room with his personal guitar tech, assistant, and publicist. He's 50-something years old with overly styled blonde hair and a scarf wrapped around his neck draped over his leather vest. Jazz may be over 50, but he is in better physical condition than we are. Jazz McKinnon is the only guy on the planet that could pull off leather pants, leather vest, a scarf, and dyed blonde hair. He smiles, exposing his toothpaste commercial teeth. "And then," he says, greeting us, "Love it. Look at you guys. I'm a huge fan. Let's get straight to it, though. I'm not here to replace Nick. I just want to jam with you guys." Jazz keeps his eyes on me and holds out his hand while the guitar tech scrambles to get a guitar for him. I still can't believe he's here. He's a legend in the rock world, having helmed some of the biggest names in the 80s and 90s. Looking at my bandmates, I could tell they're blown away too. I exchange a moment with Switch and we both manage to keep from giggling like children. Calvi's locked in a stare with Jazz, smiling like an idiot. Jazz's assistant looks up from her phone and makes an announcement. We've scheduled a photo shoot, gentlemen, if you don't mind. Somehow I'm not surprised. Regardless of what happens with Jazz, this is a moment that needs to be commemorated. Jazz ignores the large lights, reflectors, and other equipment pouring into this rather small jam room. Over here, please. A photographer orders us and ushers us around the drums where the lights are shining. Calvi and I put down our guitars and obey. Switch stays seated on his throne behind the drums, completely hidden by Jazz standing right in front of him. Calvi and I exchange a fanboy laugh behind him. Jazz is strutting around like a rooster, front and center. The camera's flash seems to be like a strobe light, and they must have taken thousands of pictures, even though the photo shoot was only a couple minutes. When it's all over and equipment is dragged out, Jazz's publicist pulls me to the side. Hi, Brad, she says. I know we only have an hour. I'm keeping the press to a minimum. Press? I question. Yes, Modern Bass Player magazine is going to do a piece on this audition. Okay, I say slowly, not sure what the hell is going on. Then I turn my head, and I don't believe my eyes. I don't know how this is possible, but Jazz is in a completely different outfit, right down to his shoes. Perfectly torn jeans, sneakers, a graphic tee and blazer, a network of necklaces. I think his damn hair is even a little different. Houdini would be impressed by this. Thanks again for having me, John calmly says as he floats by me towards his entourage, who sit him down with a journalist from the magazine in the corner of the studio. Calvi, Switch, and I are no stranger to the aspect of this job. But this is next level. The three of us just stand in the opposite corner of the room from Jazz and his intimate interview and wait. Arnie walks into the room smiling and says to Jazz's assistant, Time flies. We only have 5 minutes left. She nods and walks over to the interviewer, whispering something into his ear. You know, I always wanted to meet him, Calvi says. Me too, I say. Though who would have thought it'd been like this? I like his haircut, Switch adds. Jazz walks across the room, looking from his phone up to us and says with a confident smile, I have a book tour in a month, so I can't do the last leg of the tour. I wanted to be clear on that. I'm really digging your song, Rust in My Bones. I feel like I have rust in my bones sometimes. Anyway, that went well. Take care, boys. Wait, Calvi says and stops him for a quick selfie before bidding him farewell. Jazz and his entourage, that seemed to have grown significantly since he arrived, stream out the door, and we're left with just the three of us once again. Wow, right? What a dude, Calvi says, clearly taken by his childhood hero. Arnie walks in to give us an update. Sorry, boys, that ran a little late. We'll have to jump right into the next audition. I told him we're going to have to make it quick so you guys could have a break before the last one of the day. All right. Bruce Ross, and then, Bruce Ross. We all greet Bruce with a casual greeting after the pointless introduction. We all know Bruce already. He has his own progressive funk band, and we have run into him many times on the festival circuit. His sets are usually one long bass solo broken by nasally vocals that are almost always about fishing. Bruce walks up to me to shake my hand and I get a close-up look at his iconic bowler hat and the greasy mustache that is waxed into points. Thanks for the chance, man, Bruce says as he squeezes my hand tight and holds a deliberate eye contact through the circular blue tint glasses that make him look extra intense. Yeah, man, for sure. Hey, that's a cool guitar, I tell him, referring to the bass guitar hanging from his shoulder. The wood curled and twisted wildly. I think Bruce is the only person I know that wouldn't look out of place playing a strangely shaped guitar like that. So, do you know the song Rust in My Bones? I ask him. You mean the song playing nonstop on every rock station in America? Yeah, I think I might have heard it. I catch a tinge of bitterness in his voice, which doesn't bode well with me. Still, we jump into the song, and in true Bruce Ross form, he turns the tune into a long bass solo. I don't even sing because Bruce doesn't leave any sonic room for me. Don't get me wrong, it's amazing. Bruce is probably the best player on the planet, in a technical sense. Calvi and I take a seat when the song is done, and Switch is the first to speak. Dude, that was so fucking good. Thanks, partner. I know you guys are busy. I got my snake in the car, so I'm gonna run. Bruce answers, pushing the blue glasses up from the tip of his nose. Thanks for that, Bruce, Arnie says, and he walks Bruce out. What a weird guy, Calvi says as soon as the door closes and we're alone again. Yeah, but shit can that guy play, Switch adds. I give them both a dry look. I would rather eat broken glass than be on a bus with that guy for 2 months. Am I right? We share a laugh and spend the next hour or so eating sushi that was delivered. Arnie's playing back the recordings of John and Bruce's auditions. Obviously, we can't listen to jazz because he didn't play a single note. I had debated whether to tell my bandmates about Lale, but thought it was best to keep them unbiased. Oh, would you look at the time, Switch says, pointing to the clock on the wall. He's obviously referring to the rule that we can't start drinking until after 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Beer me, I tell him. It's been a stressful day, and beer is usually the answer. Switch goes out to the kitchen and comes back with a case of ice-cold beer. He rips it open and throws me one and one to Calvi. Who's the babe sitting in the hall? Switch asks as he falls into a worn-out leather couch. I know very well who's sitting in the hall, and I consider telling them that she's both our last audition of the day and the daughter of Ronald Ramsey. But I decide to leave out the later. Oh, right, I say casually. We had an open audition online and this girl was the winner. She seems pretty cool. A girl? Calvi responds stiffly, staring into nothing, thinking of God knows what. A girl? Switch repeats. His eyebrows scrunched together and the corner of his lip curl into a smile. Yeah, a girl. So? I answer. There's a knock at the door. Here comes the moment of truth. Arnie opens the door, and in walks Lale, bass in hand, with all the ease and confidence of a professional. Her thick, teal hair looking striking. She's dressed to impress. Lale glances at the three of us lounging with beer and chopsticks in hand and gives us an unimpressed look. Then she scans the room and struts over to Nick's old Ampeg SVT amplifier. Leather pants look much better on her than they do on Jazz McKinnon. Her sleeveless shirt has a white zombie graphic, and the collar is artistically torn and split, exposing her tawny skin. I'll have the engineer set you up, Arnie politely says to Lale. Thanks, I'm good. Lale responds, keeping her attention on the bass amp that's taller than she is. She takes off her small purse that's exactly the same shade of teal as her hair and pulls out a guitar effect pedal. Mr. Robson used to call those pedals dirt boxes. She gets down on one knee and plugs her guitar into that pedal that happens to be exact same color as her purse and her hair. She then plugs another cable into the opposite end of the pedal and stands up and finally into that large amplifier. With a snap and a crackle, the amp comes alive. Lale reaches up high and twiddles the knobs on the amp. Then she slams her foot down on the pretty little effect pedal, and the sound that comes out is anything but pretty. A mean growl shakes the room. Her knee bends slightly every time she hits the top string of her bass. Her right arm rises up and slams down aggressively every time she hits a note. Finally, she turns towards us sitting on the edge of our seats, where we were watching her every move, and puts one hand on her hip. Arnie knows very well who she is, but we agreed we'd keep her lineage a secret for the audition at least. The band has never had to meet or deal with her before, and even if they did, it would have been back in the day. Arnie stands between us and Lale like a social referee and makes his introductions, doing his best to ignore the odd energy in the room. Lale, meet Calvi, Switch, and Brad, collectively known as the band and Then. Gentlemen, meet Lale. She's here to audition to be the new bass player for the upcoming American tour. I will let you get acquainted. Arnie opens the door and walks out backwards, giving me a smile just before he closes the door. Hey, Calvi says to Lale after an awkward silence. Hey. Lale responds, just as casual. You have a pretty killer sound there. I speak up. Thanks, she says, trying not to smile. What kind of pedal is that? Switch asks. It's one of a kind. I stand up and walk towards Lael, extending my hand. She takes it, and while we shake hands and hold eye contact, she very briefly breaks away from that tough girl routine. Nice to meet you, Lael, I say with a smile. You too, she says almost shyly. I feel tempted to wink at her, but I don't. All right, let's have some fun, fellas, shall we? I say and walk towards the equipment. Switch walks behind his drums and Calvi to his guitar. Switch does a few rolls and hits on the drums, as he always does, as if to make sure they still make a sound when he hit them. All right, rust in my bones. 1, 2, 3, 4. We've played this song 1,000 times before, but it's never sounded as good as it does right now with Lael on bass. She's fucking wild. Her overdriven sound with the song sound meaner, heavier, while she adds notes and slaps and slides in the perfect spots. Her bass guitar hangs low to her knees, and her stance is wide. She looks like she owns the room. She looks like she owns the song. She owns every single moment. Her entire upper body thrust into each and every note. At every transition of the song, Calvi, Switch, and I exchange a look of amazement and joy, and begin to play with more enthusiasm, trying to match hers. Lael's over-the-top approach is infectious, and by mid-song the whole band is playing at full throttle. Toward the end of the song, it's like we're all competing to be the component with the highest energy. Switch is standing up when he rolls along the toms and slams the drums harder than usual. Calvi has his foot on an amp, playing harder than he usually does. Rather than just tap my foot, my whole leg is going up and down. The song usually has a tight ending, but this time we hold the last note for what seems like days, everyone building and building. Lael reaches down and makes her teal pedal go into oblivion. Finally, with our guitars raised high up in the air, Switch does his final roll on the drums and we slam down and end the long crescendo. For some reason, as does sometimes happen when you stop playing a song, we start laughing. Dude, Calvi says to Lael. I'm still laughing, overjoyed and completely blown away as I reach for my beer. I take a long swig and exchange a look with Switch. It seems he feels the same way I do. That was pretty badass, man, I tell her, but Lael is already unplugging her pedal and putting it back into her purse, ready to go. Arnie opens the door and addresses the room. Thank you, Lael. That was fantastic. We'll be in touch. Thanks for having me. See you, boys. She smiles at each of us and heads through the door that Arnie's holding open for her with the same confidence that she walked in with. When the door clicks shut, the air in the room changes. I never really thought about having a girl in the band, but hey, why not? Calvi says while he rests his guitar on a stand. I like her, I tell them. I liked her before, but after seeing her actually play, shit, we'd be fools not to take her. Well, aside from the messy complications of who she really is. Yep, Switch agrees. Arnie, however, doesn't share the same enthusiasm. I could tell he's being a little cautious with her, and for the right reasons. You know, he says, carefully brushing his long gray hair behind his ears. She's pretty young. Maybe she needs a little bit more experience. I mean, it's a long tour and it's demanding as hell. I thought John Betta sounded pretty good. But in this moment, there doesn't seem to be any choice. I choose to ignore Arnie's warnings as we all take our seats, open fresh beers, and look at each other with confirming smiles. All in favor of Lael, say aye, Calvi says, raising his beer, insinuating if we all agree, it'd be a binding contract. Aye, Switch says, holding up his beer. They both turn to me. Aye, I say, holding up my beer. Then we all bang our cans together. Majority rules. Motion passed, Calvi says with a laugh. Arnie stands in front of us with his arms crossed, stroking his long gray beard. Oh boy, he says under his breath.